What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. It's time to test some 10mm cases. Some interesting stuff from Jagemann. I think I'm saying that correct. But these interesting black cases that I got on sale. I can't tell you where I got them because then I'll be breaking the rules of YouTube and all that stuff. But you can find them out there. And they were actually, like I said, on sale, a very good price. But we have to make sure that they can take the heat. 10mm is a no-joke cartridge if loaded correctly. And we will definitely load it. We have loaded it correctly, and we're going to see if it can hold up to at least what Starline can take from known recipes that we use all the time and have never had problems from before. This should be interesting. I don't expect problems, but you never know. That's why we do testing, and this will be honest, no BS testing. Like always, whatever happens, happens. All right, on your left is our well-known Starline brass, good old Starline 10mm. It's been really good to me. It's really quality stuff. I like it a lot, very consistent. It's always sized properly, and it handles some very good high-pressure rounds. Now on the right, we have this Jagemann stuff. It's head-staped Jag. I've seen that before plenty of times. I've never seen it in this actual black casing. I'll put up there in the corner what they call this black stuff. But anyway, they said that it's really good. It's non-corrosive, or it helps to prevent corrosion and all that stuff. So I'm assuming it's going to work pretty well, but we never want to assume. If it works well, I think it'll actually be a cool way to identify certain cartridges. I like to load up our really hot XTP 155 grains, and I like to load the Nosler 150 grains up to pretty high pressure and speed. So using these cases would just be a good way to differentiate from the other cartridges that we have in our collection to make sure that we know those are the hot ones. But like I said, we got to make sure that they can take the pressure before we do any significant loading of these. So we have here the Noslers loaded up for the first leg of the test. Those are the 150 grain jacketed hollow point sporting handgun rounds or bullets. So I have 10 rounds loaded up of each in the Starline and the Jagemann of these 150 grain Noslers. We're using AA number 9, and never copy my recipes, but just for reference so you guys know what I'm doing here. The green ones, these green primers, and these green primers, those are loaded with 15 grains, which is getting pretty darn hot for a 150 grain projectile. But then we have what I consider my max AA number 9 load with these projectiles. So the purple ones, or these darker ones here that I just accidentally made green and then had to do purple, those are loaded with 16 grains. So those 5 and those 5 are 16 grains. That's max. These are no joke rounds. So this pretty much puts the brass to the stress test for me. I don't even like to load them again after I load them like this. It's pretty much a use them once and turn them into range brass. But for experimental purposes, I'm going to go ahead and reload a couple of these a couple of times. That'll be down the road. We'll also be stress testing these with some Blue Dot, another max load that I have that I really like, with a 155 grain jacketed hollow point XTP. But not today. We're focused strictly on the Noslers. We're going to run them through a chronograph to see how consistent they are. We're going to, of course, check them for functionality. We're going to check for accuracy just to see what kind of ammunition we made. But ultimately, what I want to do is just see if there's anything unusual with the brass. So we're going to collect fired cases and inspect them. Hopefully, that'll let us know if these are good to go for future loadings of very hot stuff. We'll be using the Springfield XDM Elite 3.8 inch. We have a hollow sun on top of it. This is our tester gun for 10mm, especially hot 10mm or anything questionable. It eats everything. It's super accurate, and it's a good testing platform. I really trust it a lot for this type of stuff. And it's always fun because the AA number 9 tends to breathe fire out of this gun. Okay, so let's put this to the test. Do we have to stick with Starline all the time? Which I don't have a problem with. It's usually priced right, but this stuff was priced a lot righter. It'd be nice to be able to use this when it comes along. I don't know what the availability is going to be like in the future, but for now, pretty darn cheap, like I said. Testing explained, let's get to shooting. All right, 5 rounds of the 150 grain Noslers with 15 grains of AA number 9 behind it, out of the Starline, and I'll try to make a good group for you. I'll try to see if I can get a reading on all the chronos. And I've had a light strike, or, yeah, that's not good. Let's try that one more time. That felt pretty boomy. We had 1303.9 and 1296. 1234 and 1240 up here on the Garmin. And another light strike. That sucks. I don't know if that's primer related or if that is gun related. I have had one light strike with this firearm recently. We could be starting a habit of that. I am using good primers, I promise you that. 1332 and 1346. 1313 and 1319. 1265 and 1262. Let's collect the brass. Let's take a look at the target. So excellent accuracy, that's for sure. We kept them all in the X ring. That's great. Well, we recovered 4 out of 5. The only one that looks a little bit questionable, that one's flowing back just a tiny little bit on that one. But the rest of them, not too bad. They're not super flattened out. None of them actually significantly flowed back at all. Just that one popped back a tiny bit. No significant bulging or anything on the bottom. 10 millimeter tends to puff out just a little bit, but I don't feel it that bad. 15 grains isn't terrible. We'll move it up in a second, but first, let's see how the other one tries, or how the other one does with 15 grains in it. All right, so as much as I quality control what I do in the reloading room, I might have this first one mixed up with a 16 grainer. We'll find out if it's significantly different from the subsequent 4 shots, but let's let her rip. We had 1306.1, and then we had 1304 out there. 1311 and 1309 up here. 1280 and 1275. And another light strike, darn it. I don't know what's going on. Maybe this 10 millimeter is failing me. Maybe the primers are failing me. I'm not sure. Huh. Now that's leading to me to believe that could be a primer issue. I'll strike it one more time. Went off that time 1275 and 1273. $13.12 and $13.11. Sorry, I'm taking my time so much between shots, but I'm just trying to get really good information and good accuracy down there. Let's go take a look at the target. Again, can't really beat that. We all have that within about a 20 gauge slug size hole. All right, I think those were all the same. We have the tiniest amount of little flow-ish back type of stuff, a little bit, tiny little bit of cratering, one little piece of swiping there, a little piece of swiping there. Nothing terrible. We have a few dings and dents here and there, but nothing different from the Starline. No bulging. Looks pretty good. We lost a little bit of the coloring during the firing process, maybe a little bit of the sizing process. I did size them, even though they're new. And then especially around where we did the crimp, I used a Lee factory crimp die. It took some of that color off. So I think upon multiple reloadings, these things might start to look like nickel plated or, you know, some sort of steel case. For this testing, I am using a pretty heavy Lee factory crimp. I just figure I'd mention that since I talked about the crimping. I just want these things to be consistent. I don't want any bullet setback upon feeding because it's a semi-automatic. That's why I have a mildly severe factory crimp die on there. All right, 16 grains of AA number 9. Remember, don't copy the recipe. But 16 grains, this is my max AA number 9 for this projectile. 1376 and 1376. They totally agree. $13.86 and $13.87. $13.74 and $13.77. $13.79 and $13.77. 1372 and 1374. Let's take a look at the target, and then I'll find some brass. All right, very good accuracy out of that also. We might have moved up to the size of a 16 gauge slug maybe, plus a 22 or a 40 caliber on the side, but pretty darn good. Well, we got 3 of them, and that's better than nothing. The reason we can't recover them all sometimes is because we have a creek right next to our little shooting range, so these things like to go swimming all the time, but nothing significant on the primers here either. Again, a couple scrapes and nicks, but nothing significant, no big bulging or anything like that. All right, let's see if the Jagemann can handle it. All right, 16 grains, what would be max AA9. Let's see how we do. The last reading was 1372. And we're having problems with primers. Or we got something wrong with our trigger mechanism and everything to do with this firearm. Let me go ahead and pull that one out of there. Did not want to come out of there. I'll put that up to the camera. Yeah, we're definitely having light strikes. So something is going wrong with our XDM. We're going to have to address this. We're having a lot of light strike issues today. So let me get this one loaded back up in there, and we'll continue the test. But you saw it. We're having major problems with the XDM Elite today. That sucks. $1356.2, $1356 down there. They totally agreed again. Another light strike. That sucks. Ooh. We got 1396 and 1394. I might have shot a little bit lower than the rest of that group that time. 1391 and 1394. 1398 and 1402. And 1419, 1425. It ran them. Let's go take a look. All right, we might have moved up to maybe a 10 gauge pattern here, possibly an 8 gauge pattern, but the bottom line is we kept them all in the X-ring. That's awesome. Let's go find the brass. All right, they don't look too terrible. We only recovered 2 of these. The other ones definitely took a dive in the creek, but they do look good. There's a dent on the side because of the way they fling themselves out of the XDM, but no big deal. No bulging. Everything looks good to me. I would say that these are totally capable of handling what we loaded up here. We still have to try the XTPs with the blue dot, but from what I'm seeing right here with the number 9 and the nozzlers, we are good to go. And at least today with this gun, this optic, and this shooter, we had really good accuracy today out of all of that. I will give a lot of credit to the XDM Elite. It's one of the most accurate pistols I've ever shot. And as much as I don't like red dots for self-defense and carrying EDC type of things like that, they are very good for bullseye shooting. I will give them that. Hope you enjoyed this testing. I know this one was a little bit of a nerdy one, but it definitely answers some questions about this brass in 10mm. I would say it's totally good to go for your average loads. If it can handle these spicy loads, it'll probably hold up as good range brass for the long term. We do have to test it for the long term, but for now, as long as it's not made out of some weird material that gets brittle or something like that, I think we're probably pretty good to go for multiple firings. I'll let you know how the resizing process goes if we have any problems with that. And again, stay tuned for blue dot testing because we will be doing that. That is my absolute favorite load, 13 grains of blue dot. Some people push it a little bit farther, but mine is 13 grains of blue dot behind a 155 grain XCP. Totally smoking round. Check out our gel test on that also. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching this video. And until we see you next time, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting.